Previously, pulp, pulse, and people. Prime philosophy perturbs perpetually. It is a partial parable of perception. This preponderance of people produced from pulsing pulp out of the plutonic, platonic. Periodic protons, prescribed phallic fates, ill-deposited in positions and oppositions, the explosion and expulsion previously impossibly hot. Predestined but unpredictable. Space expands. Paddock primality promoted. Implied. Prophylactically pulsates galactically. Paralytically planets pull partners to pulsars, pumping protein processes pop, pop. Pulsating pulp performs a prehistorical prance. Plants implanted upon Pangea, promoting promptly pilfering forms. A promise protrudes. People patterns persist, pattern and protein. Perceiving perfunctorily, preening and playing, pre-paper, phonetics and farms, proliferate, payments placed, promissory paste, phones and plumbing positioned permissibly, plots graphed, graphs plotted, pronouns progressed, now programmed by the programs, proper nouns pricked. Perhaps probability preserves some humanness. Perhaps possibility plays a protagonist, plausibly preventing the pregnant permanent pause of all persistence. This existence pondered palpably, its palpitations pushed by plum pea, propped above a period. Is creates. Its mere utterance, inscription, trace, imbues existence. This is, that is, one is, two is, one and one. This is different than that. Is, the word form, is the trivial sign of the miracle act of creation. The giver of existence is merely making it so. Made so by finger pointing, a twitch of the eyes, a sentence declaring something is, action potential in the neuron, a bit flipped, a sum of numbers, movement in space-time. Is existence, is supersedes the being and event. There is no separation of being from event, just as light is not a wave nor particle. Is being split is a valid creation. All creations are, but the phrasing and philosophy of being an event as the two actual distinct creative gestures does not mean they are the is. Is in all its disguises is the singular gesture ex nihilo. And yet, really, the act is not something from nothing. For nothing is a something. It is something from something. Nothing redefined is something indistinguished from something else. There is not something. A word game? Hardly. Is can be experimented with and falsified. In fact, is requires it. The completion of the is not negated with another is. This is not this ad infinitum. Do it without words, without thoughts. Merely observe in any perceptive medium and any perceptive tool. What happens is happens. This is not satisfactory, though. The meaning or import of is to practical understanding should be established. Only through another series of is can this be carried out. Paradoxically, the truth of the is cannot be established without an is. In fact, truth is. Truth is the only concept that resists the is. Truth cannot be isified. Truth is true. This is true. There is no basis outside of the truth that can objectify that is statement. The truth is primary to the is. Or is it? Is anything true before is establishes it for evaluation? Truth is truth. Is truth. Is truth. Truth is. In a Newtonian world, and this associates Kant, Descartes, Lovelace, Darwin, Boole, Laplace, Jesus, Muhammad, Zeus, Curie, where is and truth are mere approximations. It doesn't matter if we really know. Or does it? It does. Is and truth matters with more and more specificity depending on the relative stakes. To land humans in a rocket on the moon, the recursion of physical mathematics and physical engineering needs much more robust is true than two humans playing catch with a ball. The near infinite regress of is true of rocket physics pales in comparison to the is true of all knowledge. In fact, if fact is true, all of knowledge cannot be established because is true goes on beyond all cardinal infinity. But yet, here we are. Something is. Something is true. Some things are true. True is. False is not. False is not. False is not. How much is and how much true one needs for existence? Now that is the question. Dichotomies are the false idol. And yet from this paradox of motion, the gradient of existence springs. An endless halving of the distance from here to there, this from that, on to off, 0 to 1, left to right, positive to negative, provides the infinite degrees of freedom for all possibilities. Defining definition is an impossible end, and that is the zero-dimensional infinite singularity. Once a dichotomy is taken as common sense or a universal, it becomes a commodity. It can be assessed, ranked, compared, and valued, and then takes on a price tending towards zero. Utility begets marginal utility, habituation, cancer, cellular death. Art remains amorphous as it rides on the boundaries of dichotomies. Whatever gets labeled art, if it isn't noise, is the hammer of gradation, until the moment of redefinition through consequences. All dichotomies break down eventually. This is the universe. This is what existence is. The breaking, the false, forever falsing. Selection by consequences, the most fundamental phenomenon, follows a basic movement towards interoperability and interchangeability through modularity. As forms or structure proliferate, that is, are selected for survivability, an ever-progressive reduction to the simplest aspect of the structure providing the survivability function occurs. What is replicated within the generational line, the environment, and the overall mesh of consequences is a generally modular structure. A more robust signal separates from the noise. The history of music is an example of progression of signal from noise differentiation and replication until what is widely shared is the maximally robust, replicable signal. Music went from noisy, localized, and often private events to reproducible written scores, to recorded and replayable sounds, to studio-produced, to advertising jingles, to three-note musical logos, to iconic ringtones, to machine remixes and generative machine mixes. Music is now total replication. The visual arts went through and are still going through this transformation, from event prints to Xeroxes, to internet shared images, to machine recompositions, to computer vision, to Google's Deep Dream, and so on. Manufacturing, too, has gone from artisan craftspersonship to machine-generated and exchanged designs printed out and machine assembly by network 3D printers and robots. The object is now pure replicating signal. What is lost is the noise of the making, the accident of the noise of the specific context of creator and environment. Soon we will have virtual realities that remove the noise of the singular universe. Everyone in their pure signal forms drifting through universes of platonic forms. It cannot be stopped, for these are the most efficient and survivable concepts that remain after total selection by consequences. Until new forms disturb the peace, from the heat death of pure signal, springing from probabilities, which are outside of consequences, or rather spring from the complex network of consequences all colliding. A new form burrows out and shocks the consequential network, a constant yet choppy cycle of noise to signal to noise, from isolated event to selection to full replication to collision of pure signal to isolated event. This is contingency. This is the phenomena of networks. This is existence. Fear is the organizing principle of human life. There exists a need to survive at all levels of life and between the interconnected entities. Fear, in its least connotative form, is simply an assessment and awareness of signals and inferred signals of threats to survival. These assessments happen at all levels within and without a person, and all animal computers, population, and the world at large. Fear, in its commonly defined form, emerges from within the complex networks of real-time sensory perception, genetics, epigenetics, and memory. Historically encoded threats imputed into new possible forms. Survival is a physics resultant phenomena of the basic structure of existence, geometry and physical laws. Certain configurations of patterns, matter, energy, information, are more or less stable and have antecedents of and contingencies for that stability. Survival in the sense of Darwinian evolution and the selfish gene emerges from the probability space of interacting patterns, the contingencies of selection by consequences. The space of future possibilities is infinitely complex to a finite calculating person that survived by competing for finite available resources. Terror is a side effect of a long process of selection by consequences, both in a species' history and each individual's history. The human form is selected consequentially for its abstract pattern recognition and tool world manipulation capabilities. These abilities joint expression, a predictive and experimental approach to engaging the world, infer probabilities and then test them. Terror comes out of the accidental category error influences from the noise of experimentation and poor initial assumptions. Predictions of imminent threats are bolstered via the misassociations of the inferred threat and the coinciding negative reinforcers within and without the entity. Implied threats most often have no real connection to the reinforcers other than the temporal coincidence. This terror and its parent fear are also called intelligence. The art of the world is of the world. It is the world. Its romancers dancing to ragged renditions pounded out by hacks and vagabonds. Because we're all vagabonds of ourselves. We're clinging more or less, more or less, strapped to the ideas of our parents. We cleave our way to new frontiers. We make as we go, stumble as we go. We leave our traces on the ground, on the rocks, and now in frequencies flying through each other. Do you ever think about the words you write on your laptop or tablet and how they literally fly through people en route to the router? And the router routes it all to an unknown requester. And this is also what happens when we dance in a crowd, and when we paint, and when we go to the moon in a rocket, and our images and one sentence is beamed back. We are each other's vibrations, more or less. More, not less. We live. Fat tongue. My tongue is fat, pregnant with words I tried to swallow as I wallowed while lunching. Bunches and bunches of foul-tasting morsels. I choose these bites right in front of you, licking my lips, clicking my fattening tongue against the roof of my mouth as I smack and gnash, loosening chunks that spat flat against the tablecloth, staining you, leaving a rash, and finally my tongue, too bloated to move, stops hurting you. Will the stone yield to me? Yesterday, someone told me that science was contingent and logic necessary. I struck the stone, at first lightly, then I dug in and drew blood. Fractured assumptions flared their flimsy premise, crumbling before less than mighty blows. This someone warned me, if you crack too hard, the stone carries impact damage, scarring the surface, forcing you to sand and polish. That is, if what you care about is something smooth and approachable. Will this stone yield to me, or am I yielding to it? My logic battering it tink after tink forces my theory that no matter what I do, this stone will be what it is, and it is up to me, flawed and frayed, to ask it question. The response is Wittgensteinian, silent and yet understood, a brooding proposition of certain doubt that nothing yields everything. Dogged notions thickening. I paint, frailing optics dulling by screen-lit quickenings. He taints, simulacra singing songs. Her saint, fictions dictate on ships. We ain't to the nameless throngs, boarded trains, all aboard these flailing bodies, fogged pains, becamest. You will look. You will look for answers and motives senselessly. You will defy what is reality. Now the blood is on all our hands and spills into the dreams. Futures forever fractured, unloaded of vitality. In armaments of self-preservation, you've condemned us all to hell. We are silent. The babies wail, bearing witness, hands up, awaiting another shell. A man floats in space, helmet reflecting a blue pearl. When in the course of human events, why not a half-elf and a dragon and magic? Emerges Zeus, the grand experiment of belief, thundering wonders of Tax's conceit. Oh, a BB's with a handle booted, monochrome online, the world. Darkness sweeps the sound out of a cave spelunked, a crevice traversed by open pupil wide. All the world's a stage, Dabney Coleman inspired run. 26 millibars sink an eye miles deep. Clouds roll mural upon mural. Fractals unfurl page after Glake page. DNA trapped in blood, trapped in six-legged molasses. Raymond sums elucidate strange curves. Balsa wood strength carry forth a strange mission. This actinic mirth, destroyed in furious execution of animatonic witness. On the stand confronted an existential enemy. Delayer of papers and vanquished futures. Topologies and polymorphisms. Pappas tells me a theorem. 6 degrees removed from a bard. A tale told by an idiot full of sound and fury. Significant digits. Frozen by long walks midway between persons. What's your favorite field? Z. Complex beyond all degree, but a degree decreed. Angels spread their wings, delivering a gateway to program strange ideas, unlocking incompleteness and symbolic manipulation, until a new kind of conscious explodes in mind, consuming all previous attempts to know. Skinner contingencies make too much sense, and with the sense fall from ridiculous search where all is sought but everything found. I go to church, touring, finding my lambdas diagonalating, a retaliation against all back to a man, floating in space with pearls in his eyes, swirling hurricanes, sweeping existences into butterfly traps. A long-winded journey to this view of Off-Bomb Island too distant to show its nuclear death. Deep breathe this channel, its whitecaps and chapped lips, driving hallucinations of property owner. Guy gives us logic of sense. Nonsense to no sense is likely outcome. I am 12 again, staring at a book with no clue. Yetting on. Sundown round here, the locals say. Their blonde hairs and reddened cheeks, ideas blown out and gone before now. The rolls roll in, ready to spend. Trading fiat for photographs, ends for means. The interpretation rains down, raining experience, a sunset, bored now by hashtags and reposts, loaded and unloaded life yetting on. Football, football. I walk one step after the other. It is the 39th and 64th day of the walk. I reach the beach, sun dipped but slightly cool. The surfers baptizing the day and moms looking on wondering about sons and daughters. The fishermen cast out for meals, hauling in wriggling silver. 1.5 billion footprints adorn the shore, wandering traces of heartbreak and desperation. My pace remains inefficient. There's nowhere to rush and no one in particular to meet. No one is expecting me. I walk into a dream, a walking, waking swirl. Bodies explode in furious supernova of blood and guts as flags pierce the air. Other bodies establish their destiny upon piles and piles of tongues and eyes and hands, young and old and all innocent. The destined to fix themselves at the center of existence, clothed in fear. The void reveals itself, a glimmering, ghoulish-faced mass. It is me, then it is you, and everyone, ripping, gripping, tripping. The void expands mercilessly, feeding on accelerating desperation of existence. The march of the bloody, pulsating masses crying out fuels the combustion. Each self claiming more righteously existential necessity. Darker still, more selfhood, more identity. The differentiation is more fully drawn. The void is more fully complete. There is no truth. There's a great eruption, the rapture of fear, great tears in the distance everywhere. The children look on, silent, beyond expression. Their expressionless faces in the face of the dark unknown. There are no colors. It is hot, and it is also cold. The void shivers its quickening. Curled up in massive waves, the formless form inhales the children. They do not cry out. They do not resist. There are no destinies. It is quiet, silent. I hear my breath. Slightly labored, I bring in oxygen and expel carbon dioxide. I cannot see the void. I cannot see the non-void. I am not standing anywhere. I am in no relation. There is nothing. 2 dogs run by. A boy chases them. A car